This is How Do I Do This? The show for anyone asking, is it just me or is this a lot? Grief changes your relationship with memories. Some days remembering feels like a gift, but some days remembering feels hard, especially if your life with them here on this earth was complicated. And so today we're asking, how do you hold the good memories and still honor yourself and maybe the more harder memories together at the same time? And also, how do you walk your child through grief? You're going to learn today how to hold both love and pain when the memories sting. How can you honor a 1-year anniversary of a death and maybe even past that? And how can I help my son grieve in a way that honors him, that is healthy for him, and honors his memories too? And so today I have my good friend, Marshall Ramsey. He's a syndicated editorial cartoonist, a 2-time Pulitzer finalist, and the man behind some of the most iconic cartoons dealing with grief and resilience in America, and is a personal sort of big brother, if I had to choose one in my life, that I know is going to come to me and give me good advice and wisdom, and that at the very least, it will be rooted in love and the best that you can give me. And so I appreciate you being here.
We were talking yesterday, and I swear, I think you're my sister from another mother. You really are. We were like, oh yeah, okay, that tracks. So, but thank you so much for having me here today. Hey, it's great to finally get to see you, and it's good to be back home, and this is wonderful.
I know. It's so nice for you to be here. So I know your history, but tell everybody what it was like to grow up as little Marshall.
Little Marshall. Yeah. I was apparently a very smart little kid who was very aware of everything going on. I have 2 older sisters who are amazing. I love them very much. They're 5 and 8 years older. And I grew up with 2 really wonderful and at times flawed parents, like everybody's parents. My dad was Dave Ramsey, not the radio show host, but actually the guy who Dave's named after, because our dads are brothers. So we're related. But Dave Ramsey and my mom, Virginia, who was beautiful. She looked like Elizabeth Taylor. She was an artist. She was smart. But she also had gone through some stuff, and she had another side to her, and she was at times scary when I was a kid. And so she was an artist, and I thought it was my job to make her happy, and I became an artist. And so there are a lot of complications in that time growing up, but there were a lot of good moments, and I tend to cling on to those.
Yeah. So what was your relationship like with them when you were a child, and then you went to kind of give us the arc of how your relationship with them went, because they're no longer with us. And so kind of catch everybody up on that.
Yeah. Dad was a traveling salesman. In fact, he got the contract for Lockheed, Georgia in the 60s for the C-5A. That's how we ended up moving to the Atlanta area. And that was fun. So I grew up there, but Dad was gone a lot, and he decided he wanted to open his own business so he could be around his family. And so he opened a gas station, he and my next door neighbor. And so Dad was gone a lot then too. And so I spent a lot of time with my mom. And my mom, she lost a child between my middle sister and I know that was tough for her, and I'm sure it was scary to carry me. She ended up having I'm not sure what kind of cancer, if it was uterine. I think it was uterine cancer in the 70s, and she had pneumonia, and she was very sick. And I remember being snuck into the hospital and them thinking that she wasn't going to make it. The nurses would sneak me in to talk to her, and that was scary. And
how old were you and all of that?
I was really young then. It was 72, so I was probably 5 or 6. And then when she was 8, she got breast cancer. And if y'all will remember back, this was back before pink ribbons and, celebration of breast cancer. Back then, nobody talked about it. And it was, if it wasn't for Betty Ford, who actually did mention that she had it. Back then it was taboo. It was a loss of sexuality. We're not going to talk about it. My poor mom, she must have suffered so bad from that alone that she did not have the support system that she needed. And
being a mom to 3 children
and
at the
a
same
mom
time.
to 3 children. Yeah. And my dad, who's an amazing human being, and I love him to death. I don't know if he was the world's most supportive like I said, I'm viewing this from the memories of a child, right? But all I know is that they were 2 human beings trying to do the best they could. But as a kid, they fought a lot during that time because mom was scared. And I have some memories that absolutely terrify me, from that point. And it was amazing how, real life gets in the way. I mean, thankfully mom did survive. She died, I guess, 9 years ago in 2016. But I tell you, it was some tough stuff.
Yeah. So you've spoken before, through your writing and everything about losing your parents. What did that season look like, and how does that reckoning happen? Because I sort of feel like I'm in that space too. Because I've shared it was hard to be Sharon's oldest daughter and her rainbow baby. Equally hard a lot of days to be Terry's oldest daughter, and to also go into the field that he gave me an interest in. And I know you have a very similar story because your mom was an artist. And then, I feel like I'm in this space of reckoning because there's a lot of beautiful memories. There's a lot of hard memories. But the hard is, for me, created a lot of good qualities in me that have served me well in my career. So how did you sort of reckon that when it was their last few years and immediately after, since you're further down the line on this than I am?
Yeah, to kind of condense it really tightly. So dad started getting dementia. He water skied at age 78. Okay.
That's incredible.
By the time he was, it was really a super moment because you had Dave Ramsey pulling Dave Ramsey with David Ramsey in the boat. There was a lot of Dave Ramseys running around. Dad started slipping. And that was hard because, you think about Alzheimer's and dementia. And for those of you who are going through this right now, I'm going to give you a big hug because it's incredibly difficult. The Alzheimer's Society has reached out to me to come help, and I still can't do it. It was 2 years. I remember calling him when he was still at home, and I said, "Hey, hi, Dad." And he said, "Who is this?" And I said, "It's your son." And he says, "Marshall." And he said, "I don't have a son." And he hung up on me. And I remember crying all the way to Starkville, Mississippi that day because it was really sad. Dad continued to go downhill a little bit. He started taking some of the medication. He recognized me again. So I was in college by the time, he came close when he actually passed away. But I remember the last time I saw him awake, Dad said, he looked all upset. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "You're here because you need money for tuition, right?" I said, "No, I got a scholarship and you never have to pay my tuition again." He got the biggest grin on his face. He was so proud of me and so happy. And that was just kind of the way it was. So with Alzheimer's, you pay the grief forward, right? Mm-hmm. So dad gets sick and he dies. Well, mom is having struggles at that point too. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who knew my mom, she had an amazing side, and we're going to talk about that too. But she had a lot of troubles at the very end of her life. And so it took my sisters and I working as a very close team to make sure that financially she was safe, to make sure she was physically safe. She had COPD, so she was going down. So that 8 months, we were literally spending a third of our life every day, making sure that she was okay, cleaning up messes, taking care of her.
And at this time, had you met Amy and had your boys and
everything? Oh, yeah. See, and that was
the other part. You were being a dad and a husband. I was
trying to be a dad. And if I have any regrets on it, I really should have sheltered them more from what I was going through. Because about the time that this was all going on, I asked a friend who recommended a therapist, and I went to therapy. Yeah. And I hid behind the potted plant because I didn't want anybody seeing me there. Because I thought in my head, for some reason, that was shameful. What an idiot, right? I mean, seriously, it was the bravest thing I could have possibly done. And he looked at,
and the best thing for your family,
and the best thing for my family, to the point that even my boys now, they know, they know if they ever need help, they can go get help, and that's a wonderful thing. But it was the best thing I ever did because it allowed me to understand why I was behaving the way I was. And also too, I want to give a huge shout out to my wife who just absolutely held a lot of things together when I was falling apart.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, especially in the South, there's just things that we don't talk about, right? We don't talk about going to therapy, especially males. I think it's hard to say. I think there's, that extra stereotype.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mental health is health.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. Seriously. When you have heart problems, you go to your cardiologist. Right. When you have cancer, you go to oncologist. Right. Go to a therapist.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And it's just so nice to have an objective third party who's
Yes.
not so close to it, who can actually step back and say, here's some tools that can help you feel better. Because part of my upbringing is, and I've been very open with everybody here, is my anxiety. It's my superpower. It makes me a great attorney. But when it's turned on myself, it's really, really hard. Well, now because of mental health help, I have tools in my toolbox of, I don't ever get to that place where, I'm most of the time never get to the place of where it's hard to function or it's hard to mother, because I have different tools I can use. And
That's
it's
right.
just giving, okay, well, maybe you need a hammer for this, or maybe you need a screwdriver for this. Whereas beforehand, I was just walking around with like just sheer grit getting me through life and white knuckling the handlebars of life.
Yeah, I was using a hammer on everything. I mean, that was the thing. I didn't have the other tools in the toolbox yet.
Yeah.
And as your brother from the future, now that I'm here, and since like I said, 6 years ahead of you on the grief part, and 12 years ahead of you on the calendar, I will say this: that if you don't get that anxiety, that adrenaline, that living in the fight or flight mode all the time, you will burn out. And, and I kind of hit that in the last year. I mean, I kind of woke up. We lost my mother-in-law last November, and then our dog the next day. That was, a terrible conversation with my youngest son. But yeah, so it was just like my wife and I were just looking at each other going, okay, we need a change, and we need to do some things differently. And we did. We ended up getting new jobs and moving. That was a pretty big change. But yeah, I think, therapy is kind of like going to the gym. You can sit on the edge of the bench and take selfies and post about it and all that, or you can get in there and you can sweat and you can do the work. And guess what? In a few weeks, you're going to see a huge change. And it's been for me. And right now I do not have a therapist. I will say I'm in between, but it was the greatest thing I could have possibly done for my family.
Yeah. So you're fathering, you're being a husband, you're working with your sisters to help your mom through this, and holding down a job.
Oh yeah, by the way, which I'd just been made part-time, because the newspaper business was crumbling.
Yeah, so that's grief
I had to pick up a second job.
Yeah.
So Yeah,
and that's grief too, whenever you're having a big career change or needing to pivot or whatever. And so how did you cope in that time?
I did a boot camp in the morning, which a little bit about. I did that. The physical, obviously, exercise. I did take medication for a short amount of time, which was very helpful, but I did wean off of that eventually. Now, and I've had spinal surgery since then. I ran a marathon at 50 and had spinal surgery at 53, so I know how to party. But anyway, so I did, I get out every morning, I walk an hour every day, and, I do what I do. But I figured out something along the way. And whereas my mom and I were very similar, and I'm going to throw out bare references, and you have not seen the episode. So I hate doing this to you, but there was a scene where Carmi was being told that he needed to learn to forgive his mother. It's one of the best examples on television, I think, of mental health. But his quote unquote uncle says to him, you need to learn to forgive your mother because you're a lot like her. And for me, I was gobsmacked by that. I love that word, gobsmacked.
It's a great word.
It really is cool. Whack. I can just sound like a fish being hit upside your face. But I realized, in a lot of ways I am a lot like her, because we've had that multi-generational trauma that's been passed down. And suddenly I'm starting to act some of the ways. I mean, my poor kids, they had me not being the dad and man I need to be in the household, and the father and the husband and everything else. Poor Amy. But what happened was, I figured out pretty quickly that what mom did was she turned inward, right? She thought she could control the situation, and that's why she fell apart at the end of her life. For me, I've let go of what's inward and tried to help others and to be able to do things for them. It's about love, and God, it sounds so John Lennon, and I'm so sorry, but and I don't mean to be soppy or soft, because really, honestly, loving other people is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Yeah, because a lot of us have very unlovable moments.
Yeah, that's right.
And at any point in time, we can be unlovable to somebody else, and not even mean to do that.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, if you're constantly turning inward, you don't ever see the fact that you can be unlovable because you think the whole world is out to get you. And I think I finally got to the point with mom, and I still, I get mad about some of the stuff she did, but I understand where it came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned to forgive, which is one of the most powerful things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they talk about it in Sunday school a lot.
Yeah.
And I now know why, because it's like literally why should I drink the poison to expect something to happen to her?
Sure.
She's not here to begin with. But the second thing is I understand where she's coming from. And if I can like do things and love my children and love my wife and love my friends. And one of the things that I've done and I'm starting to do is she had a pumpkin bread recipe that was amazing. She got it in New Jersey when my family lived up there from a cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy, I'm going to say my wife's name, I guess is okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. She's fine with it.
Yeah, no, well, I don't know. That's the question. So if next time I'm on, we're talking about divorce, you know what happened. But no, mom made this pumpkin bread. And for me, that's some of the best memories of her was, when she would cook, and because she did really good mom things. I mean, I think she held it together really well for a long time. Especially all what was going on. I mean, I had cancer. I had cancer. I mean, that freaked me out pretty bad. So I can only imagine her making sure that there was breakfast on the table every day, and that we had clothes, and we showed up at school.
And it was during a time when the roles were more traditional.
That's right.
And so she had a lot of running the household still.
She did, and she ran the budget part and everything. So she was pretty incredible in that respect. So what Amy makes the pumpkin bread, and I've been helping her. I'm learning how to make it, and we make little loaves, and I put the recipe on it, and I just give it to people.
I love that.
Yeah, so I'm giving the best part of her out into the universe.
It's so funny you say that because at my mom's service. I don't know. Do you know my friend Rachel Meisner, who's ours? Yeah, I thought y'all did. So Rachel came to my mom's service. She drove to Alabama, and I was crying. And she said in the service, it's something before the service started. She came and she whispered in my ear, and she said, "You are the very best parts of her." And I remember it was the kindest thing that I think anybody has said to me, because my mom had so many wonderful, loving, motherly qualities. Hard as hell on my ass, but she was a human, and she really was doing the best she could in the 80s with 3 kids and a husband who worked a lot, and postpartum depression after losing a child. We certainly didn't talk about mental health issues back in the 80s.
No
and
kidding.
So I can really see, I think you talk about that understanding can lead to forgiveness. And that, I mean, I'm thankful for therapy. I think wherever you find that, whether that's in nature, quoting Taylor Swift lyrics, or actually seeing somebody, I'm a big advocate of seeing somebody, but having that third person help you kind of unravel what's up here.
Or call you on your BS too.
Yeah, absolutely. To say that's unfair. Look at what all she was dealing with. That sucked, but it also sucked for her too. Yeah. Is so helpful. That can lead you to that forgiveness space, which is going to then give you peace. So how do you now, I love that you honor her memory in that way. How do you, because that is the best part of her, and that's a happy memory for you. And that's something you can give people that they're like, I got pumpkin bread.
Well, if I did some of the stuff that made me mad, I'd be thrown in jail. So I don't want to do that. Right. So that'd be good. So.
Exactly. So I'm hearing from you that the memory of your parents has evolved and changed over time.
It has. And I think sometimes, number one, I guess I was mad because Dad was away and left me with her when she was mercurial and having her issues. But, over time, and you tend to, when you have the other parent, you tend to lionize them a little bit, more. But I didn't realize when Dad died how much he protected us from some of her rough moments. He was really good at that. And I remember, I realized there was a lot of stuff that Mom did, I'll be honest with you, I'm still mad about. But it's like, what good does that do? So I tend to say, okay, what can I do personally not to carry that forward? And, I love my kids. There are moments, they're older now. I'm sure there's moments when they want to choke me. They think I overshare on Facebook, that sort of thing. And they've told me that they've had the courage to be able
Mm-hmm.
to be very honest with me about things. But, I can't say anything that'll make it right. And I grew up in a family of words, and I need to be a man of action or a father of action or a human of action or whatever, and I think at the end of the day, I love my kids. I really do. And I'm so proud of them. I think Amy and I have done a wonderful job, and she has done a wonderful job. See, that's the other secret thing. While I was falling apart, she was holding things together.
It's amazing. Just having that partner there to kind of pick up the slack. So I shared a reel a few days ago that has gotten a lot of views saying that I have a lot of guilt that I wasn't there for my mom's last birthday.
Yeah.
And I've had some people message me and also comment and say, well, that's easy for you to say because you sounds like you had a good mom. And I did have a good mom in a lot of ways. But what I hear when they're responding to me that way is they're angry and they're hurt with their parent and they can't find any good memories. So what do you say to somebody who's in that sort of stuck space where it's just all anger and resentment? And to be fair, there are terrible parents. There are people who should not have children. But, to help those people who are listening that are part of this community move on, what would you tell them?
First of all,
well, not move on, but I don't know what the right phrase is. Or
yeah, I think the hardest part in my situation is because there wasn't all bad. Right. There was really good. And then there was stuff that was really rough, and so that made it really hard for a kid to process and to understand. And then by the time I was 8, I blamed myself because I wasn't making, I hit her wine. I hit her cigarettes, because she had cancer. I didn't want her smoking, kind of thing. Cause I didn't want my mom to die because I didn't want us to break up as a family,
Right.
My advice to anybody on this, and I've been there and I understand the anger and I understand where it takes you and I understand how powerful it is. And there will come a point where you find a little bit more peace. At least I hope. I hope you do go seek help. But at the end of the day, you just have to sit down and you just have to look in the mirror and you realize I need to be more in this moment, not in the past, because I'm losing and wasting a lot of my life. And I think maybe it's because I'm now older. And I now realize the odometer is getting a lot of numbers on it, and my kids are getting older, and we now have an empty nest. But I realize, you know what? I need to hang on to every moment I can and find the joy in that moment.
Yeah. So I'm coming up on the year of Mom's angelversary. That's the word I'm using because the word anniversary felt celebratory, and that doesn't feel good. Do you do anything special, or did you do anything special with your children to mark the 1 year passing of your parents? Or how do you, I'm kind of perplexed about what to do or to do anything. It's like, I want to get this right for my son who's still in grade school. My husband tells me if you get it right for you, you'll get it right for us. But as a mom, I can't help but feel like, well, I got to think of my son first. So what advice do you have for me there?
Yeah, I think where I probably messed up, I needed to make sure I honored my kids' memories of their grandparents more instead of me allowing what was going on to seep out and so forth. And they were, I do the math here. They weren't super young, but they were young enough that they needed to still have nice memories of their grandmother. But I think that's spot on. I think you are just be there for them, and on Dad's birthday, my dad always, every meal was the best meal ever. And we would go sometimes to the worst restaurant, but it'd be the best meal ever. And I thought, and we always joked about that. So like on his birthday, we always say, well, let's go have the best, my sister's like, let's go have the best meal ever. Because that's what Papa Dave would say, right? Yeah. Well, I figured it out finally that the reason why it was the best meal ever is because we were there.
Yeah.
And now that my kids are, they're grown and I watch them drive away. And I remember my dad standing there just looking at us, and he would just stand there and watch us drive under the horizon. And now I'm doing it. And I now understand that when I'm with them, it's the best meal ever. The point is that you've got this wonderful opportunity to be there for him, for your son, and to be with him and make those memories for him. And you're doing it.
Yeah. Ooh, don't talk about him driving away. I'm going to start crying.
Well, especially, because wait till you pay the car insurance. Then you'll really cry.
So what are some small ways that a family can honor a day that maybe you've seen your friends do that you think that's a really cool idea? Or do you have any of those that we can maybe share with people?
Yeah, go to a favorite restaurant, go have a
Mm-hmm.
nice meal, put a picture up, go do an activity they love to do. Some way that you feel like you can bring their spirit to be with you,
Yeah.
and go and tell stories, and maybe write down on a card and say, write down your favorite story and throw it in the middle and pull up and read it out,
Yeah.
and so forth, kind of thing like that.
I love that. That's a great idea, especially since he's learning cursive and
They're
um,
teaching cursive at the school he's
they
at.
are. His school is
That's
amazing.
amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So and my mom being a teacher would love that he is learning cursive. So
Yeah, my mom was a teacher too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
There you go. Once again, same.
it all tracks.
Yeah.
Um,
Scary.
So did you, your children were older.
Mhm.
My son's very aware that the year is coming up. Um, did your children see you upset because he has a big heart? He's an empath.
Yeah.
And I don't want him to think that this isn't something we can't all overcome together. And so how did you sort of balance them seeing the reality of you being sad, the reality of your anger versus kind of shielding them, or did you?
I am not coming to the table here today as an expert on this. My emotions at that point were like letting go loose a balloon in the room as it
Okay.
went flying all around.
Okay.
I'm not sure I did anything on purpose or I did anything right. If I have any regrets, it wasn't that. But once again, because I went to therapy, I was able to, over time, get better at it. Because it was so hard. Because what happened was there were a lot of things that happened as a kid that when some of the behaviors later on, when mom was scared, I understand that. It's a scary moment when you have COPD and your lungs are, it's like you're drowning and so forth. And she, it was like a boat going through a shallow pond, just digging up all the mud and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so my advice, if I could do it over again, would be I would do and not say. I would be there for my kids more than I was. And like I said, I was working 2 jobs. It was crazy at that point. And so I do have that guilt from that. But then again, we kept the house, so that worked out really well too. So
Yeah.
on that. But
We're all just trying to find a blend from day to day because
Yeah.
there's no such thing as balance, I've decided.
No, I think that's usually something you see in a commercial or on
Yeah,
TikTok.
it's real cute. It's
Yeah.
it's a real good idea.
Right.
So you walked through a hard season. You were a dad. You were working two jobs. You were a husband. If somebody's listening and they find themselves in a similar place,
Mm-hmm.
what do you wish you could go back and tell yourself?
It's okay. You're okay. You're going to be fine. Love your kids, love your
Mhm.
wife, love your friends, lead on other people. You don't have to be the hero. Other people can help you be a hero.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know you've already heard my fabulous 5 before because we have another episode with Marshall that you will that you need to check out about the role that creativity plays in healing. But I'm going to see if you say anything different. So, what's a life lesson from your dad or your mom that you continue to draw inspiration from if you're having a hard day?
That it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to make a mistake. And like I said just a minute ago, if you truly being a hero, you need to have friends and you need to have people around you to support you. And that's
Yeah.
what I did with the book.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the book. So tell us about Saving Sam, because Banjo's Dream I have here, and you told me it's almost sold out completely. It's no longer in print. So tell me about Saving Sam.
Saving Sam came out of the fact that I took the Banjo. Banjo was the used dog that we had. We were his 3rd family, so he wasn't a rescue. And then Pip was the dog we had. We had a 26-pound cat named Sam we got in Houston, Texas. And then there was an alligator in the neighborhood. And so I started doing coloring sheets during the pandemic. I did over 1,000. They were literally one a day for 3 years. And so I created a kind of an origin story, how the team came together. And so Banjo was a hero in the first book, in Banjo's Dream. And in this book, he discovers very quickly that he needs a lot of help to be the hero.
Yeah.
And, that friends come in all shapes and sizes, and
It's
that
true.
families come in all shapes and sizes.
It's true. It's why I love Kermit the Frog and the Muppets, because Kermit just wanted to put on a show, but it took all the Muppets to make it happen. You needed the Diva and Miss Piggy. You needed Gonzo to blow himself out of a cannon, and it just didn't happen. The Muppet Show didn't happen because of Kermit's crazy idea. He needed all the Muppets to make it happen. So I'm so excited to read that. So in your dark moments when life has gotten really loud, what's something that helps you get through?
You know what I've started doing now? We have a backyard and we got some Adirondack chairs and a little fire pit. And for some reason, there's not a lot of light pollution. And I sit there and I watch the flight tracker and I watch the planes that are going to where my son lives.
Oh, that's
awesome. And I pretend, I think about the lives of the people on there, and I wish I were on that plane.
Oh, I love that. I love that. The most sacred thing in your house or something super sacred that holds a memory that you just love.
Well, outside of my family.
Right.
There are just little bits and pieces from memories from my dad and my mom that are like port keys from Harry Potter that I can touch, and it'll take me back to a good memory.
Yeah, I love that. If you're asking God a question, what are you asking?
Help.
Help. Yeah.
No, I used to, I always thought it when I passed that I would say, what was going on? I mean, and now I kind of know what was going on. And now I realize, my mom and dad were two incredibly wonderful people who had their moments, but they decided to have a third kid. And that third kid grew up to be me, and I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
So I say thank you.
Yeah, I like that. What's your ride or die swear word or phrase, or what are you saying when you're just really done with traffic, people? It's been a day.
I try to keep things fairly PG because I live in Mississippi now. But like I said before, I tend to go Roy Kent when I drive on 285 in Atlanta, for instance.
Yeah, I think it's a requirement. I don't even know why we have speed limits.
No, they're suggestions. Actually, I think 285 is the speed limit.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, for giving me the big brother advice, for giving me the idea that my mom loved to cook, and maybe there's a recipe I can find for her.
One thing to remind you of, number one, grief is like a bruise. You're going to re-hit it every once in a while. Just when you think things are getting better, something's going to hit it and you're going to go, ouch, and it's going to hurt again. And remember, if C.S. Lewis shook his fist at the sky, which he wrote one of the best books possible on grief, that if C.S. Lewis shook his fist at the sky, then grief is serious. So I think you're doing remarkable, and the best thing you could possibly do is help other people, and you're doing that every single podcast.
Thank you. That's so kind. All right. Well, that's it for today. You can ache for who you were before it all started and still find a way to grow. Grief and growth sit at the table, often passing notes when we're not looking. This tea, this time, this space is part of your healing, and it's part of mine too. You're not broken. You're just brewing. And besties, we do not gatekeep around here. So if you heard something that enlightens you, that you think will help a friend, pass it along, share, follow, and come back next week. Your seat at the table will be waiting. Follow along on Instagram at How Do I Do This Pod, and on YouTube at How Do I Do This Pod. DM me on Instagram and tell me what kind of grief you're holding right now. Seriously, I'll read every one and will probably be the person to respond back. Tell me what you have tried that you think might help me. I'm open to trying anything that's not illegal. Your story might find its way into one of our future episodes.